Captain Jake sat in the cockpit of his spaceship, flying through the vastness of space. He had been on a mission for weeks, exploring new worlds. But today was different. As he navigated through a colorful asteroid belt, alarms suddenly blared. Lights flashed red, and the ship shook violently. Jake's heart raced as he tried to regain control. "Come on," he shouted, gripping the controls tightly. He pressed buttons and pulled levers, but the ship continued to spiral out of control. Before he could react, a loud crash echoed through the cabin. The ship hit an asteroid, and everything went dark. When Jake woke up, he found himself on the floor of the cockpit. He blinked, trying to clear his head. The ship was silent now, except for a soft hissing sound. He pushed himself up, feeling sore all over. What happened? He mumbled to himself. He looked around and saw that the cockpit was damaged. The controls were broken, and the view outside was a blur of green and brown. He forced the door open and stepped outside. The bright sun blinded him for a moment. When his eyes adjusted, he found himself in a thick jungle. Tall trees with wide leaves surrounded him, and colorful flowers bloomed everywhere. The air was warm and filled with the sweet smell of exotic plants. But Jake felt a shiver of fear. He was alone on this strange planet. Jake took a deep breath and looked around. He spotted his ship, half buried in the ground. The wreckage was scattered, but he was lucky to be alive. He needed to find help and food. He gathered his courage and set off into the jungle. As he walked, the sounds of the jungle filled his ears. Birds chirped above him, and strange animals rustled in the bushes. Jake felt both excited and nervous. He had always dreamed of exploring new worlds, but he never expected to end up in a place like this. He needed to stay focused. After walking for a while, Jake came across a small stream. The water was clear and inviting. He knelt down and took a drink, feeling refreshed. "I can do this," he thought. "I just need to find a way to survive." He scanned the area for food. There were fruits hanging from the trees, but he was unsure if they were safe to eat. He picked a small, bright orange fruit and sniffed it. It smelled sweet, so he took a cautious bite. "Not bad," he said with a grin. The fruit was juicy and delicious. Feeling a little more hopeful, he gathered some fruits and put them in his bag. As the sun began to set, the jungle changed. Shadows grew longer, and strange sounds echoed through the trees. Jake decided it was time to find shelter. He looked around and saw a large tree with thick branches. "That will do," he said, climbing up. He found a sturdy branch and settled there for the night, hoping it would keep him safe from any dangers below. Lying on the branch, Jake felt a mix of emotions. He was scared and alone, but also excited about the adventure ahead. He thought about Earth and his friends. He wondered if they were looking for him. "I'll find a way back," he promised himself, closing his eyes and drifting off to sleep. The night was filled with strange noises. Jake awoke several times, startled by the sounds of rustling leaves and distant calls of creatures he had never heard before. But as the sun rose, he felt a sense of determination. He would not give up. When morning came, the jungle was alive with color. Sunlight streamed through the leaves, creating a beautiful pattern on the forest floor. Jake climbed down from the tree, ready to explore more. He felt stronger and more confident. He had survived the night, and that was a good sign. Jake started walking again, eager to see what the jungle had to offer. He came across a variety of plants and animals, each more fascinating than the last. He saw birds with feathers that sparkled in the sunlight and insects that glowed like tiny stars. It was a world unlike anything he had ever seen. Suddenly, Jake heard a rustling noise in the bushes nearby. He froze, his heart racing. "What was that?" he whispered. He slowly turned to see what was making the sound. To his surprise, a small creature peeked out. It had big eyes and a furry body, and it looked just as curious about Jake as he was about it. Jake crouched down, trying to appear friendly. "Hello there," he said softly. The creature tilted its head, sniffing the air. Jake smiled, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe this jungle was not just a dangerous place, but also filled with wonders. As he continued his journey, Jake knew he had a long way to go. He was stranded on this jungle planet, but he was alive. He had food, water, and a growing sense of adventure. With each step, he felt more at home in this wild and beautiful world, unaware of the incredible journey that awaited him. Meeting the aliens. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Captain Jake felt the warmth on his skin. He had been exploring the jungle for hours, fascinated by the colorful plants and strange sounds. But he also felt a bit lonely. I wish I could find someone to talk to, he thought as he walked deeper into the vibrant forest. Suddenly, he heard laughter. It was a soft, musical sound that floated through the trees. Jake paused, his heart racing. Could there be other people here? He wondered. Curious, he decided to follow the sound. He moved quietly, trying not to make noise, and after a few minutes he found a clearing. In the middle of the clearing were 4 alien women. They were unlike anyone Jake had ever seen. Their skin shimmered in the sunlight, with colors that changed from green to blue. They had long, flowing hair that looked like vines, and their eyes were large and bright. Jake's breath caught in his throat. They were beautiful and strange. The women were playing a game, tossing a round, colorful ball back and forth. They laughed and danced, their movements graceful and fluid. Jake felt a mix of excitement and fear. Should I say hello? He thought, but he wasn't sure how they would react. Gathering his courage, Jake stepped into the clearing. Hello, he called, waving his hand. The laughter stopped, and the aliens turned to look at him. Their eyes widened in surprise. Jake could see a mix of curiosity and fear in their faces. Don't be afraid, he said, trying to sound friendly. I'm a human. My name is Jake. I crashed here. I need help. He hoped they would understand him. The aliens exchanged glances, whispering to each other in a language Jake couldn't understand. They looked unsure but intrigued. One of the women, taller than the others with bright blue skin, took a step forward. She tilted her head and studied him closely. Jake felt nervous but also hopeful. I come in peace, he added, trying to reassure them. The blue-skinned woman seemed to sense his sincerity. Slowly, she smiled and extended her hand. Lyra, she said in a soft voice, her accent melodic. Jake couldn't believe it. She was speaking English. Lyra, he repeated, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you for not being afraid. The other 3 women relaxed a bit, smiling and nodding. Jake felt a spark of connection. They were not just aliens, they were beings with emotions and kindness. He took a step closer, careful not to invade their space. Lyra began to speak again, her words flowing easily. You need food, shelter. Jake understood her questions and nodded eagerly. Yes, I'm hungry and I need a place to stay. I crashed here and don't know how to get back home. The aliens looked at each other, and then Lyra motioned for him to follow her. They led him deeper into the jungle, their movements light and swift. Jake found it easy to keep up with them. They laughed and pointed at different plants, showing him which ones were safe to eat. He was amazed by their knowledge of the jungle. As they walked, Jake learned more about them. They lived in a village nearby, hidden among the trees. It was a place filled with beauty and life, just like the jungle itself. Lyra explained that they had never seen a human before, but they had heard stories from their ancestors about strange beings from the stars. After a short hike, they arrived at the village. Jake's eyes widened as he took in the sights. The houses were made of woven branches and leaves, blending perfectly with the surroundings. Bright flowers decorated the paths, and everywhere he looked, there was color and light. The villagers noticed them and gathered around, curious about the newcomer. Jake felt nervous under their gaze but reminded himself to stay calm. Lyra spoke to them in their language, and soon they began to smile and welcome him. Welcome, Jake, Lyra said, translating for the others. "We will take care of you." The villagers brought him food, fruits, nuts, and some strange but delicious dishes that smelled amazing. Jake thanked them, feeling grateful for their kindness. As they ate together, Jake shared stories about Earth, describing its cities, oceans, and people. The aliens listened with wide eyes, fascinated by his tales. In return, they told him about their culture, their beliefs, and the beauty of their world. They sang songs and danced, making Jake feel like part of their family. Days turned into weeks, and Jake settled into life in the village. He helped the aliens with their daily tasks, learning their language and customs. Lyra became his closest friend, guiding him through the jungle and teaching him about its wonders. The other women, Nia, Zara, and Tia, also grew fond of him, each developing a unique bond with Jake. Despite the joy of their new friendship, Jake sometimes felt a pang of longing for home. He missed his planet, his friends, and the life he had known. But every day with Lyra and the others brought him happiness. He realized he was no longer just a stranded human. He was becoming part of something beautiful. One night, as they sat around a fire, Jake looked at the stars above. "I may be far from Earth," he said, "but I have found a new home here with you." The aliens smiled, their eyes shining with warmth. In that moment, Jake understood that his journey was just beginning, and he was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. Gaining their trust. As the days passed in the vibrant jungle village, Captain Jake felt more at home with Lyra and the other alien women, Nia, Zara, and Tia. Each day was filled with new adventures, laughter, and learning. However, Jake knew that gaining their full trust would take time and effort. He wanted to show them that he was not just a stranger, but a friend who would protect them. One sunny morning, while Jake was helping Lyra gather fruits from the trees, they heard a loud roar in the distance. The sound sent shivers down Jake's spine. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "Cry," she said, her voice trembling. Jake recognized the fear in her expression. Something dangerous was nearby. "What is it?" Jake asked, trying to keep calm. "A wild creature," Lyra replied, pointing toward the direction of the roar. "Very strong. We must be careful." Jake's heart raced. He thought of how he had survived alone in the jungle. He felt a surge of bravery. "Let me help. I can protect you," he said firmly. Lyra looked at him, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "You are brave, but you are human. You don't know our ways." "I may not know your ways, but I have faced danger before," Jake assured her. "I want to protect you and your village. Just give me a chance." After a moment of hesitation, Lyra nodded slowly. "Okay, we will trust you, but be careful." Together with Lyra, Jake moved cautiously through the trees, following the sound of the creature. The jungle was alive with noise. Birds chirped, insects buzzed, and leaves rustled in the gentle breeze. But Jake kept his focus on the danger ahead. Finally, they arrived at a clearing. There they saw a huge, ferocious creature. It had sharp teeth, powerful legs, and thick fur that blended into the shadows. The creature was sniffing the ground, looking for something to eat. Jake felt his heart pound in his chest. "We need a plan," he whispered to Lyra. Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the area. "We can use the trees," she suggested. "If we can distract it, we can lead it away from the village." Jake agreed. They quickly gathered stones and sticks, creating a small pile. "I will throw these to make noise," Jake said. "When it turns, you can lead it away." Lyra looked impressed. "You think like a warrior," she said, her voice filled with admiration. Jake felt a sense of pride as he prepared for their plan. With a deep breath, Jake picked up a stone and hurled it into the bushes on the other side of the clearing. The stone made a loud noise, and the creature turned its head, alert and curious. "Now," Lyra shouted. She began to move silently through the trees, making her way around the creature. Jake watched as Lyra skillfully distracted the beast, moving gracefully like a shadow. He felt a rush of adrenaline and knew this was their chance. As the creature turned fully away from him, Jake threw another stone, hitting a nearby tree. The noise drew the creature's attention again. Suddenly, Lyra let out a loud call, drawing the creature even further away. Jake felt a surge of determination. He threw more stones, creating chaos in the clearing. The creature, confused and angry, began to chase after Lyra's voice. "Keep going," Jake yelled, running to keep pace with them. They maneuvered through the trees, the creature hot on their trail. Jake could feel the weight of the situation, but he trusted Lyra and focused on the plan. After several minutes of running, they reached the edge of a steep cliff. Jake turned to Lyra. "We need to make it stop," he shouted. With quick thinking, Lyra grabbed a long vine and tied it to a tree. "When it comes, we can trap it," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. As the creature charged toward them, Jake felt a rush of fear, but he stood his ground. Lyra stood beside him, ready. At the last moment, they pulled the vine tight, and the creature stumbled, confused by the sudden obstacle. "Now," Jake shouted. Together, they worked quickly to secure the creature, using vines and branches to trap it safely. After a few tense moments, they managed to restrain it, ensuring it could not escape. Breathing heavily, Jake and Lyra looked at each other, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. "We did it," Jake exclaimed, a smile spreading across his face. Lyra's face lit up with joy. "You are strong and clever, Jake. You have earned our trust today." Jake felt a wave of happiness wash over him. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when he truly became part of their world. After securing the creature, they returned to the village together. When they arrived, the villagers greeted them with cheers. Jake felt proud, knowing that he had protected them and gained their respect. The other alien women looked at him with admiration, and he could see that they were starting to accept him as one of their own. That night, they gathered around a fire to celebrate their victory. The villagers danced and sang, expressing their gratitude for Jake's bravery. He felt the warmth of their acceptance surrounding him, and he knew that he had found a family in this strange, beautiful place. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled overhead, Jake realized he was no longer just a stranded human. He had become a part of their community, and together they would face whatever challenges the jungle had in store. With a heart full of hope, Jake smiled, ready for the next adventure. Facing danger. The days in the jungle village continued to grow brighter for Captain Jake. He had earned the trust of Lyra and the other alien women. They accepted him not just as a guest, but as a member of their community. Jake felt proud to be part of their lives. However, he also knew that the jungle held many dangers, and he had to be ready for anything. One afternoon, Jake and Lyra decided to go for a walk along the riverbank. The sun shone brightly, and the water sparkled like diamonds. As they strolled, they talked and laughed, enjoying the beauty of their surroundings. Jake loved these moments of peace, feeling safe with Lyra by his side. Suddenly, they heard a loud rustling noise in the bushes nearby. Jake's heart raced. "What was that?" he whispered, his eyes scanning the area. Lyra looked worried. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice low. "We should not be here alone." Jake nodded, feeling the tension in the air. They moved closer together, their senses heightened. The rustling grew louder, and then they saw it, a massive hulking figure emerging from the underbrush. It was a creature larger than any Jake had seen before, with thick fur and sharp claws. Its eyes glowed with a menacing light as it locked onto Jake and Lyra. "Run," Jake shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They dashed away from the creature, sprinting as fast as they could. Jake could hear the beast crashing through the jungle behind them, its heavy footsteps thundering like a drumbeat. As they ran, Jake's mind raced. He had faced danger before, but this was different. The creature was powerful and fast. They needed to find a way to escape. "We have to reach the village," he yelled, pushing himself harder. Lyra was right beside him, her face set in determination. "This way," she called, leading them toward a narrow path that wound through the trees. Jake followed, trusting her instincts. They burst onto a wider trail that led back to the village. But the creature was relentless. It roared angrily, charging after them. Jake could feel the ground shake beneath its weight. "Keep going," he urged Lyra, glancing back to see how close the creature was. They were almost there, but they needed to reach safety fast. As they neared the village, Jake spotted a group of villagers gathering fruits. "Everyone, run," he shouted. The villagers turned, eyes wide with fear, and began to scatter. Jake and Lyra reached the entrance of the village just as the creature crashed through the trees. "We need to protect our home," Lyra shouted, her voice steadied despite the chaos. Jake felt a surge of courage. He quickly grabbed a sturdy branch from the ground and yelled, "Get to the weapons." The villagers nodded, understanding the urgency in his voice. They rushed to grab spears and other tools for defense. Lyra stood beside Jake, holding a spear tightly. "We must work together," she said, her eyes focused and serious. The creature entered the village, snarling and baring its teeth. It was massive, towering over everyone. Jake's heart raced as he faced the beast, adrenaline coursing through him. He could feel the tension in the air. The villagers were scared but ready to fight. "On my count," Jake shouted, rallying the villagers. 1, 2, 3. With a roar, the villagers charged forward, Jake leading the way. They thrust their weapons at the creature, trying to drive it back. The beast growled, swinging its claws, but Jake and the villagers stayed brave. They moved in unison, working as a team. "Don't let it get close," Lyra called, using her spear skillfully. Jake admired her courage as she fought alongside him. The creature lashed out, knocking several villagers back. Jake felt a wave of fear wash over him as he watched his friends fall. But he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Keep fighting," he yelled, determined to protect his new family. Together, they continued to press forward. Jake felt the heat of the battle in his chest, the need to protect those he had come to love. They attacked as one, pushing the creature back toward the edge of the village. Finally, with a coordinated effort, Jake and Lyra managed to outmaneuver the beast. As it turned to charge again, Jake spotted a heavy rock near his feet. He quickly picked it up and hurled it with all his strength. The rock struck the creature squarely on the head, stunning it. "Now," Jake shouted. Lyra and the other villagers took their chance, rushing forward to deliver the final blows. With one last roar, the creature staggered and fell, defeated. The villagers erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the jungle. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had done it. They had faced danger and protected their home together. As the villagers celebrated, Jake looked around at the smiling faces. He felt a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. He had proven himself not just as a visitor, but as a protector of their world. Lyra stepped beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "You fought bravely, Jake. You are one of us now," she said softly. Jake smiled, his heart full. "And I will always protect this village, no matter what," he promised. Together, they stood among their friends, united in their victory. The jungle was still full of mysteries, but Jake felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He had found a family in this strange place, and he would fight for them always. A special connection. After the battle with the creature, the village felt different. The air was filled with laughter and joy, and the villagers were grateful for their victory. Captain Jake had earned their respect, and he felt a deep sense of belonging among them. Each day brought new adventures, but what he cherished most was the special bond he was forming with Lyra. One bright morning, Jake and Lyra decided to explore a part of the jungle they had never seen before. The sun shone through the trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. As they walked, Jake admired the colorful flowers and the strange, beautiful creatures that flitted through the air. "Look at that," Jake exclaimed, pointing to a vibrant bird with bright red and blue feathers. It flew gracefully from branch to branch, singing a sweet song. Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling with delight. "It is called a frillo," she said. "They'd bring good luck to our village." Jake watched the frillo as it danced in the sunlight. He felt lucky to be there with Lyra, sharing these moments together. "I wish I could take a picture of it," he said, feeling a sense of wonder. "Take a picture?" Lyra asked, tilting her head in confusion. "Yes," Jake explained. "On my planet, we have a small device that captures images. It helps us remember special moments." Lyra smiled again, intrigued. "That sounds magical. We can capture the memories in our hearts, too," she replied, placing her hand over her chest. Jake felt a warm glow at her words. He appreciated how Lyra found beauty in everything, including the simple things. As they continued their walk, they talked and laughed, sharing stories about their lives. Jake told her about Earth, his family, and his dreams. Lyra shared tales of her people, their traditions, and the legends of the jungle. As they walked deeper into the jungle, they came across a small, clear pond. The water sparkled under the sunlight, inviting and refreshing. "Let's take a break here," Lyra suggested, her eyes bright with excitement. Jake agreed, and they sat by the pond, dipping their feet into the cool water. "This place is beautiful," he said, feeling relaxed. Lyra nodded, her gaze focused on the ripples in the water. "Nature gives us peace," she said softly. "It is where we find our strength." Jake admired her wisdom. He realized how much he had learned from her in such a short time. As they sat together, Lyra began to hum a soft tune. It was a melody that seemed to echo the sounds of the jungle. Jake listened, feeling enchanted. The song was calming, and he felt a deep connection with Lyra in that moment. He wanted to share something special with her too. "I want to show you something," Jake said, getting to his feet. He searched his pockets until he found a small stone he had picked up from the riverbank earlier. It was smooth and shiny, reflecting the light beautifully. "This is a special stone from my home. It reminds me of the river back on Earth." Lyra took the stone gently in her hand, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is beautiful. Thank you, Jake." She looked at him, her expression serious yet soft. "This means a lot to me." Feeling bold, Jake decided to take a chance. "I want to give you something else too," he said. "I want to share my heart with you. I feel a special connection between us." Lyra's face lit up, and she nodded slowly. "I feel it too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You are not just a human to me. You are a friend, a protector, more than that." Jake smiled, feeling his heart race. He had never felt this way before. It was like a warm light shining in his chest, making him feel alive. "I want to learn more about your world, your people, and your heart," he said earnestly. They sat quietly for a moment, enjoying the peaceful sounds of the jungle around them. Lyra broke the silence first, her voice soft and sincere. "You have brought strength to our village. You are brave and kind, and I admire you." Jake felt a surge of happiness at her words. "And you have shown me the beauty of this place and your spirit," he replied, his eyes meeting hers. "I've never met anyone like you." With a shy smile, Lyra leaned closer, and their shoulders brushed against each other. Jake could feel the warmth radiating from her, and his heart raced. It was a moment he wanted to last forever. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jake and Lyra sat by the pond, sharing stories and dreams. They spoke of the future, of adventures they would take together, and the bond they were forming. "Will you teach me more about your culture?" Jake asked, eager to learn. "Of course, and you can teach me about your Earth too," Lyra replied with a bright smile. "We can learn from each other." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the pond. Jake felt a sense of peace wash over him. He was no longer just a stranger in a jungle. He had found a home, a purpose, and a special connection with Lyra. As they walked back to the village, hand in hand, Jake knew this was just the beginning of their journey together. With Lyra by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the jungle. Together, they would create new memories, explore new places, and strengthen the bond that was growing between them. Jake felt hope and excitement for the future, knowing that love and friendship could bloom even in the most unexpected places. A hard choice. As the days turned into weeks, Captain Jake felt more at home in the jungle village. He had built a strong bond with Lyra and the other alien women, and the villagers accepted him as one of their own. Each day brought new experiences, laughter, and lessons. However, deep inside, Jake struggled with a growing conflict in his heart. He loved this place and these people, but he also longed for his home on Earth. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, Jake sat by the pond where he and Lyra had shared so many special moments. The water reflected the beautiful colors of the sky, but Jake's heart felt heavy. He had been thinking about his family, his friends, and the life he had left behind. Lyra approached quietly, noticing his distant gaze. "What troubles you, Jake?" she asked softly, her voice gentle. Jake looked up at her, seeing the concern in her eyes. "I've been thinking about home," he admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. "I miss my family, my friends. I never thought I would be away from them for so long." Lyra sat beside him, her expression thoughtful. "I understand. You have a life there, but you also have a life here now," she said, reaching for his hand. "You are part of our family too." Jake felt warmth spread through him at her words. He loved Lyra and the village, but the thought of leaving was still painful. I don't know if I can choose between two worlds," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "How do I decide?" Lyra took a deep breath. "Sometimes life gives us hard choices," she said wisely. "But remember, you can carry both places in your heart. Your past and your present can exist together." Jake appreciated her perspective, but still felt torn. "But if I go back to Earth, what will happen to you? To the village? I don't want to abandon you or the people who have accepted me," he said, his brow furrowing with worry. "You will not abandon us," Lyra reassured him. "You will always be part of our story, but you must decide what is best for you." Jake wanted to believe her, but the weight of his choice felt heavy. He had grown to love the village, the way the people cared for each other, and the beauty of the jungle. Yet, he missed the familiarity of Earth, the sounds of the city, the laughter of his friends, and the warmth of his family's embrace. The next day, the village held a festival to celebrate the successful harvest. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the delicious smell of food cooking over open fires. Jake joined the festivities, trying to push aside his worries for a while. The villagers danced and sang, their spirits high, and Jake felt a sense of joy wash over him. As the evening wore on, Lyra took Jake by the hand and led him to the center of the gathering. "Join us," she called out, pulling him into the dance. Jake felt the rhythm of the drums and the happiness of the people around him. For a moment, he forgot about his troubles and simply enjoyed the moment. But as the night went on, he couldn't shake the feeling of conflict in his heart. He watched Lyra dance, her laughter ringing like music in his ears, and he felt a pang of sadness. He loved her, but what did that mean for his future? After the festival ended, Jake found a quiet place away from the crowd. He sat beneath a tree, staring up at the stars twinkling above. He remembered the night he crash-landed, feeling lost and alone. But now he had a family, a home, and a love that filled his heart. Yet the pull of Earth remained strong. Lyra found him again, her expression serious. "You look troubled," she said, sitting beside him. "What is in your heart?" Jake took a deep breath, knowing he had to be honest. "I love this place, Lyra. I love you. But I also miss my home. I don't know how to choose," he confessed, his voice cracking with emotion. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Jake, love is not about choosing one place over another. It is about carrying love in your heart, wherever you go, she said softly. You can visit your home. You do not have to forget about us. But what if I can't come back? Jake asked, his voice full of worry. What if I leave and never return? Then you will always be in our hearts, Lyra said firmly. You have already made a mark here. You have changed our lives for the better. Jake felt a surge of emotion. Lyra's words gave him hope, but the fear of making the wrong choice still lingered. I don't want to hurt anyone, he said, feeling overwhelmed. Lyra reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. Whatever you choose, it will be your choice. No one will judge you. We only want you to be happy. Jake nodded, feeling grateful for her understanding. Thank you, Lyra. I just need time to think, he said, his voice steadier now. As they sat together under the stars, Jake knew he had a difficult decision ahead. But with Lyra by his side, he felt a little less alone. No matter what he decided, he would always carry both worlds in his heart. And perhaps, one day, he would find a way to bring them together. A new beginning. The sun rose brightly over the jungle, casting a warm glow across the village. Captain Jake awoke with a sense of clarity he hadn't felt in weeks. He had spent the night thinking deeply about his life, his choices, and his future. The love he felt for Lyra and the village was real, but so was his longing for home. Today was the day he would make a choice. As he got up and prepared for the day, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had talked with Lyra, and she had given him the courage to face his decision head-on. He wanted to find a way to embrace both parts of his life. After breakfast, Jake gathered the villagers together. He wanted to share his thoughts and plans. The villagers listened closely, their faces filled with curiosity and concern. Lyra stood beside him, offering her support. Thank you all for being so welcoming to me, Jake began, looking at each person with sincerity. I have grown to love this village, its beauty, and all of you. You have become my family. The villagers smiled, and Jake felt a warm wave of affection wash over him. But I also miss my home on Earth. I have a family and friends there who care for me deeply, he continued, his voice steady. I don't want to leave you, but I also want to see them again. Lyra squeezed his hand, encouraging him to keep going. I have decided to take a journey back to Earth. I want to reconnect with my old life, but I promise to return, Jake declared, his heart pounding with the weight of his decision. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Some villagers looked sad, while others nodded in understanding. I want to bring a piece of this village with me, he added, hoping to ease their worries. I want to share your stories, your culture, and the beauty of this place with my family. Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. Jake is brave to make this choice. We can support him. He is not leaving us behind. He is carrying us in his heart. The villagers began to cheer, their spirits lifting. Jake felt a sense of relief wash over him. This was not an end but a new beginning. He could bridge both worlds and keep the love he had found in the jungle while cherishing the memories of his home on Earth. As the day went on, Jake worked alongside the villagers to prepare for his journey. They gathered fruits and vegetables, creating a special basket filled with gifts for his family. Lyra helped him choose items that would represent their culture, brightly colored fabrics, handmade trinkets, and delicious food. I want them to feel the joy and love of this place, Jake said as he carefully arranged the items. Lyra smiled, clearly proud of him. That evening, the village held a farewell feast in Jake's honor. The air was filled with laughter and music, and the villagers danced around the fire, celebrating not only Jake's journey but the bond they had formed. Jake felt a deep sense of belonging, surrounded by the warmth of his friends. As the night wore on, Jake and Lyra found a quiet moment away from the festivities. They stood under the stars, the moonlight shining brightly above them. I will miss you so much, Lyra said softly, her eyes glistening with emotion. Jake pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. I will miss you too, "Lyra, you mean the world to me," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "But I promise to come back. This is not goodbye forever." Lyra looked up at him, her expression a mix of hope and sadness. "You will always have a place here. Our hearts will be waiting for you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Jake felt a lump in his throat as he held her tighter. "I will carry your love with me, always. I want to show my family how special you and this place are." The next morning, Jake prepared to leave. The villagers gathered to see him off, their faces a mix of joy and sadness. Jake hugged each person, thanking them for their kindness and friendship. When it was time to go, Lyra handed Jake a small woven bracelet. "Take this with you. It will remind you of us," she said, her voice strong despite her tears. Jake slipped the bracelet onto his wrist, feeling its warmth against his skin. "I will wear it every day," he promised, feeling the surge of emotion. With one last look at the village, Jake climbed aboard the small spaceship he had repaired after the crash. As he prepared for takeoff, he took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. He was embarking on a new adventure, and he was ready to embrace it. As the ship lifted off the ground, Jake looked down at the jungle below, the vibrant colors of the village fading into the distance. He felt a pang of sadness, but also a sense of hope. He was not leaving behind his past. He was opening the door to a future filled with possibilities. With Lyra in his heart and the village's love guiding him, Jake charted his course back to Earth. He knew he would return one day, bringing with him the stories and memories of a place that had changed his life forever. This was not just a journey back home. It was the beginning of a new adventure that would connect two worlds, his old life and the beautiful new life he had found among the stars.